vase I'm going to talk about this lesson is the Cheiron Vase, or Cheiron Vase. It can be found in Visual Resources Greek Theatre Volume 1 on page 35, 36 and 37. It is a southern Italian vase that depicts a comedy scene, a scene from Greek comedy. We get a lot of our idea of what the Greek theatre would have looked like, the Greek comic theatre, from southern Italian and Sicilian vases like this. And this also might mean that Greek theatre was transported over to southern Italy. There were lots of colonies, Greek colonies in southern Italy. Southern Italy was very Greek, and it's a very different country now, southern Italy is, to the north. So this southern Italian vase depicts a scene from a comedy, and you can see it's got quite a slapstick nature to it, hasn't it? You've got a pantomime centaur, and it's possibly a parody of the myth of the centaur of Cheiron, who was healed by the god Apollo. Now, the building to the left could well be Apollo's temple. And the centaur is in the middle of the vase. So Cheiron was a guy who was supposed to have tutored Achilles. So he was half man, half horse, and he's supposed to have been the great hero Achilles' early tutor. So you can see he is going up the steps, and he's been helped in this endeavour by a slave. The back end of the centaur, you can see it's played by two people. The back end is kind of pushing him up the steps there. Now, the date of this vase is around about the early 4th century, so we're talking 380 to 370 BC. And it's a red figure vase. A red figure look very much like they are, a sort of the red figure of the clay showing through. So you've got a bell crater, that's the shape of it. Now, a crater was for mixing wine and water because you just didn't drink wine neat, you needed water in it. So we've said the scene is a parody of a mythical scene. It's from a comedy. And Oliver Taplin, a scholar, argues this is comedy rather than a pantomime or a mime or anything like that, and it's evidence that Greek plays were being transported to Italy and were put on in southern Italy. If we have a little look at the stage building, you've got steps leading up to the stage. So that's quite normal. We're quite kind of used to like a three steps there. They look quite temporary, don't they? They look like it's a wooden structure there, and that would fit in well with a play being on tour in southern Italy. So the stage is probably about a metre high, and you've got the scene, the stage building, and then you've got this kind of overhang, a porch. And the scene, the stage building, do you remember what that was? That was for actors changing, but it was also part of the backdrop. Well, here it's part of the temple of Apollo at Delphi, so our famous one. Do you remember? Oedipus went to Delphi. So let's have a little look at the guy on the stage. He is Xanthias, and he's a slave, and because it's comedy, he's got a rather grotesque mask, and he's got lots of padding to help him if he fell over, and it's also funny to have lots of padding. He's also got a fake, he's got a fake phallus there, in a very important part of the costume. I wonder if you can guess what that part of the costume is. They had a lot of fun with it. He is a slave who's standing on the stage there. Xanthias actually means blondie, so we can't really tell his hair colour from the vase, but it's a common slave name and it means blondie. So the centaur is two actors, like a pantomime horse there, so a lot of sort of knockabout slapstick humour. So let's have a little look at the next slide. Xanthias has got a short border tunic over an undergarment. So what happened in comedy was that it was generally short costumes rather than the long dignified of tragedy. If you look at Cheiron's mask, he has got white hair, so he's older and he seems to be walking with, the centaur is actually walking with a stick then, he's got shaggy eyebrows. His eyes are closed because Centaur was actually Cheiron was actually a blind centaur. What is this myth? It could be the time when Heracles wounded Cheiron and he went to help. He went to the Delphi to help to heal because Apollo was the healing god. We've got a young man to the far right, and he possibly is Achilles. Now, he isn't represented in a very comic way, and he looks like a quiet, small, young figure there. So he possibly is Cheiron's, sort of pupil. And at the top right-hand corner, we've got some ladies, and they're rather grotesque and ugly, I'm afraid. They've got grotesque masks on. And there's a debate about who these ladies, what they could be. Some people say they are the actual muses, that could work, goddesses of inspiration and that. But other people think they are nymphs. Because Cheiron actually, when he got to Delphi, actually bathed in a stream sacred to the nymphs. What is obvious, they're a comic portrayal of women and they've got some grotesque masks on and that. So I've already talked a little bit about the costume that Xanthias is wearing, so you have to describe it in your book on page 36. So it's a short border tunic, you've got, it's kind of over a one-piece bodysuit. They wore flesh-coloured bodysuits, and sometimes that made them look as if they were naked, and then, in some circumstances, but he's actually got quite a nice tunic and padded belly, and a grotesque mask with a snub nose. How does Cheiron's costume differ from Xanthias? Well, it's a similar costume and mask, but he's got white hair, shaggy eyebrows, he's blind, and you can tell that from the mask. He's old, he walks with a stick, and you can tell also in question 16 that the nymphs are also wearing, sort of pretty comic masks as well. So again, we've got this debate. Are the muses, or are they nymphs of the stream that Cheiron bathed in? And it's quite all right to put that, any sort of exam question and explore it. People don't quite know. The fact that we've got such an animated, funny scene shows the role of slapstick in comedy. It's very much a knockabout humour that we're going to be doing. We'll see that when we're reading Frogs. So what happens with Greek comedy overseas? Well, it's very likely, as I said before, that they could be travelling around southern Italy and putting on these plays that have already been put on in Greece. And Oliver Taplin, a scholar, strongly argues for this. And we've got quite a few of these old comedy vases, these vases from southern Italy with comedy scenes on. You have to be careful how far you deduce. Yes, it looks like a temporary theatre stage, and you can actually say, yeah, it does look like wood, it does look like something that was put up and put down. but also it could be just be representative of a bigger stone stage or something like that. We don't quite know, but I quite feel it looks temporary. It could be, it could be in another place in another week or so. So the questions you need to answer are pages 35, 36 and 37 of Greek Theatre Visual Resources Volume 1, and I hope my screencasters enabled you to answer some of the questions.